Hello and welcome back.
We're back. Hello,
We're
everyone.
back. So we've been having some technical difficulties. We're all ready to go now. So picking up where we left off from, I'm Robin Leonard. I'm the CEO of AF Digital, and we're here with Lewis Baird, who is joining us from MuleSoft and is going to talk to us today about reopening. Great. So let's dive straight into the questions then. Lewis, can you please describe MuleSoft for us in one sentence?
Yeah, sure. So MuleSoft is that platform for change. It's a platform that brings people, process, and technology together as your strategic business enabler that will drive success in the long term. So you'll never hear me say integration because it's just so much more than that.
Yeah, and tell us, Luis, what are the problems that you think companies will be facing now that everyone's experiencing and enjoying freedom days?
Yeah, of course. And I'm now based in Singapore, so I know you guys in Australia are now free, so congrats on that. So look, for anyone on this call, customers across all industries, they're under this immense pressure to change. It's not just because of things such as, historically it's regulations within banking. It's how do you stay connected to your customer? You also have other things that you have to consider that you don't project. COVID, for example, it's disrupted the market. It's forcing the physical to become digital. So there's this massive imperative around digital because it's these channels that are the only channels that are going to be consistently open in this period of selling, servicing, collaborating. So these companies are under great pressure to deliver these connected experiences. And when you then put the umbrella around, you've got new competitors coming in every day. You've got all the regulatory complexity. So Australia, for example, the Royal Commission. And then you've got customer behaviours because, we always want more. So how do you navigate that ecosystem is a massive pain point for customers and partners.
That's really great. And thank you for that, Lewis. We hear a lot of people talking about API-led transformation. Can you just explain that terminology in layman's terms, please?
Yeah, exactly. So, with APIs, for example, they're not a new thing. It's the methodology behind how you use them. So MuleSoft is APIs and integration. And what we do is that we're intentionally building assets that can be purposely reused across any project use case, any part of the business. So for example, if you're building, Lego blocks, for example, you won't build a house and then go and buy a new Lego block to then build another house. You'll then look at one Lego block within your foundations and go, I'm going to reuse that to go and make Edinburgh Castle, for example. So it's around, how do you plug and play into the assets that you've already built? And what this does is it drives speed, it drives agility, it drives better partnerships. If you look at ASICs, for example, they're not using their own map. They're plugging APIs into Google, for example. And that's what the game changer is with MuleSoft. It's how you have the methodology behind that success.
Yeah. And just, because you mentioned ASICs, can you just maybe expound a little bit in terms of the success that they're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very important to note that, there's potentially a lot of people on this call that will think that agility is how quickly you can get that first project done. But what you have to think about is, with the likes of ASICs, for example, is, they started off saying, we want to build a mobile channel. And once they started unlocking that data, they soon realized, wow, we've got all this data that we didn't realize that we had to drive even more value. So then they built, 3 assets on the first project, and then they built an e-commerce platform, and then they built a real-time inventory. And now what they've done across their organization is globalize their whole environment. So they're now at about 100% reuse of everything that they've built. So ASICS is one of these partners they've reduced their maintenance costs by 64%, and they're also driving their new products and services by at least 3 times faster than they did previously. So happy to share more information on that, especially if you're within the retail space.
Yeah, that sounds also beautiful. But can you share with us, obviously ASICS is a global large retail brand. What companies, are best fit for this type of solution?
Yeah, so we get that a lot, and people will say, you know, if you look at Gartner, for example, it will be an enterprise iPaaS. That's not the case. Yes, we're a platform for big banks such as ANZ that I worked on, but we're also a platform for change for smaller organizations. So we work with a lot of startups, for example. When we look at TikTok, you know, they were looking at innovating and delivering real-time mortgage processing, and they've been doing that with MuleSoft. So you don't have to have a big bang approach with MuleSoft. You can start small and then expand that as well. So, you know, with a lot of Salesforce customers that we work on together, you know, big, small, in between, starting up, it's for everyone, as long as the appropriate use cases are there.
Thank you, Lewis. What kind of companies or what should companies focus on as they reopen? You know, we're going into this massive reopening. What are some recommendations that you have?
Yeah, so, you know, working with a lot of partners and, you know, working with customers previously is that we sometimes tend to think a little bit reactively. And when I talk about, you know, driving speed, people tend to think about speed as, oh, let's just get this first project done. But that's not really innovation, because you have to then think, okay, how can I prepare for the future and prepare for things that we can't foresee? And so the first thing I would think about is, what's the motivation behind that first initial use case? And then how is that then going to expand? Because then that future-proofs your organization. You then have to think about people and process as one, because, you know, as we know, you know, companies are doing digital transformations all the time, but 84% of those customers are not seeing value in the technology that they're implementing. And that's because we don't have our business and our IT teams aligned. And so once we understand, you know, $700 billion is spent on integration, there's a reason for that, and it comes from the business. So then it's bringing those teams together. And of course, it's the technology. So what we will typically find is that, especially in this day and age, is that companies will tend to focus on how much is this going to cost, as opposed to what's the value that I can see in the long term. And so that's the type of things that we would consider for organizations to really drive change.
Great. Well, thank you, Lewis. It's been really awesome having this conversation with you, and thank you for joining us. I guess to wrap up, creating these customer experiences is no longer an option. All organizations are faced with needing to connect systems and, you know, really provide a new type of experience. And they can't do that without having the infrastructure in place to achieve that. And as you said, Lewis, it's really about that plug and play mentality. That's really the future of how organizations should think about integration. You know, you don't have to be constrained by the technical side. It's really just about what does the business need to provide that experience. Yeah, thank you.
Well said, Robin. Well, thank you so much, Luis. It's such a pleasure to have you. I could listen to you all day. To all our listeners and viewers right now, thank you for sticking around. If you're still with us, to let you know that we're here to discuss further. If there's anything here that sparks your interest, we're happy to help you as far as building your innovation roadmap. Like what Luis just said, it's innovation roadmap, not integration. Please reach out to us at AF Digital.
Great. And also please follow us on our YouTube channel or LinkedIn or Facebook, as we'll be doing a lot more live streaming sessions in the coming weeks.
Thanks, everyone.
And thanks very much for having me as well. See you soon.